I think most of us can admit that we're a bit desperate for Animal Crossing New Horizons information. People are analyzing anything they can get their hands on, like the fiasco with the booklet from World Hobby Fair that I posted on Twitter, or zooming in on things like toe beans. Okay, that one's actually important, but you get my drift. It doesn't even feel like we have a new game coming out shortly, considering how little we know about it. And at first, I was worried by the lack of coverage Nintendo was giving, but after looking into things more, I realized that this is probably a good thing. I'm going to start by taking a quick look into my own experience of the wait for other Animal Crossing games to set the stage for talking about New Horizons. Since my first Animal Crossing game was Wild World, my first time waiting for a new Animal Crossing game was what would eventually become City Folk. The first rumor I heard of it was in 2007, when Animal Crossing Wii was listed as an upcoming title for that year. However, we had to wait until E3 2008 for the actual title and any information on it. From then, it was only a little over 4 months before it came out in North America. Even though the wait time between the initial announcement and the release was quite short, a lot happened in between. Information was coming out frequently on all the new features of the game, so we knew exactly what to expect when it came out, and people really hyped it up. There was so much information, in fact, that some fans were discussing if they felt that Nintendo had revealed too much, even before the game had come out. I remember pretty clearly that a few days before the release date, a user on Animal Crossing community got a copy of it from their local Walmart, which had apparently put it out too early. She was able to show off the game disc and prove that she really did have it. Everyone had a lot of questions, and she confirmed what many had feared, that City Folk's hourly music was the same as Wild World's. I think that was my first inkling that the game might not match the high expectations that I had had for it, and not long after, people were wondering if the game had been rushed. I was still pretty young and wanted to know everything about the game that I could, so I did look at everything online. But when I started to play it, I felt like in part because I knew so much, and because it was pretty similar to Wild World, it wasn't everything that I had imagined it to be. Of course, Wi-Fi was fun, but that was mostly thanks to who I was playing with. Animal Crossing New Leaf had a much longer period of time between the first few trailers and when it came out. It was originally announced in 2010, but with next to no information. However, it was reported on Nintendo's press site that players would become the mayor. Everyone was speculating how this would even work in the game, what would happen to Tortimer, and if it would still feel like Animal Crossing. There was a lack of information for a long time. We got a trailer at E3 2011, and then a downloadable video in 2012, but essentially nothing in between. We didn't even get the English title until late 2012, less than a month before the game came out in Japan, and the release date for North America wasn't announced until the following February, just 4 months before it would be coming out. This longer wait was in part due to the game being pushed back multiple times. For many fans, this was frustrating, but there was also an understanding that giving the game more time would prevent it from being rushed. There was some more information before the game came out in Japan, but fans overseas mostly learned about how the game worked from people who had access to the Japanese version. Shortly before it came out in other countries, there were some people who received early copies of the game, and this was the first time to see many parts of the game officially in English. Some fans, like myself, chose to not look too much into the game before playing it, so that they could discover things for themselves and be surprised. Now, let's go back to New Horizons. It seems like it will be quite a departure from the previous games, since it now includes crafting features, being able to put furniture outside, and more clothing options for animals. There's a lot of questions surrounding how certain features will work, and I'm sure that there's plenty of new things that we still have no idea about, still. So I don't think that the issue is if Nintendo showed more about the game that we'd know every little thing about it when the game came out. Keeping that in mind, I started to get worried a couple of months ago that something might have gone wrong with development. After all, if they have an amazing product ready, why wouldn't they want to show it off? While the game seems to have been in development for a while, we've already seen a number of small changes in the game since its original E3 announcement. One big one is the grass pattern. At E3, it was only noticeable in some places, whereas in the September Direct, the pattern is more prominent, like in previous installments. We've also gotten more Nook phone apps, and it seems that the color balance may be slightly different, although this could be because of the time the footage comes from. From this, I started to worry if there's a lot of last-minute changes being done to the game. If that were the case, it would be a good idea to not show too much of things that might change later on down the road, so fans wouldn't start to feel concerned that the game might be being rushed. It is normal to see changes from when a game is first shown off, but when it's so close to the release date, it might not be the best option. At first, I thought that this kind of late development was the main reason for the lack of information, but I realized that there's something bigger at play. Nintendo's new marketing strategy. Nintendo has been trying for a while to send the message that they're not just for kids, that their consoles are made with hardcore gamers in mind, and that things will change with new systems. In the past, this hasn't gone well. People continue to see Nintendo putting out and focusing on making games that label them as being made for casual gamers, and so their situation doesn't get any better. But Nintendo has been really trying to change things with the Switch. When Nintendo launched the system, there was a focus on games and genres that haven't been getting as much attention in the past. A big one was showing off Breath of the Wild as being open world. This could be in part why there isn't much of a focus on Animal Crossing. There's a fear that if it gets too much attention, people will keep associating Nintendo with its family-friendly image. And, at the same time, they're confident that fans of the series will buy the game no matter how much information we have on it. We don't need to know every little detail for that. We already know of the core new features of the game, developing an island by scratch and crafting. We may not know how they work, but just knowing that is enough to get us excited. I have a feeling that other new features will stem off of things that we've already seen and not be completely out of the blue. So, instead, the aim is to bring in new players to the series by showing off the atmosphere rather than the specific mechanics, which is more so what current fans care about. Charming acoustic music indeed.
So cute.
They trust that new players will get hooked once they experience the features for themselves, and it's difficult anyways to explain the core mechanics of Animal Crossing in an appealing way in such a short amount of time. I mean, this kind of advertising worked on me. I already had heard of Animal Crossing for GameCube a bit when I was a kid, but could never get the console. But those Wild World commercials with the animal neighbors that came out shortly after I got a DS sold me, and I got the game that Christmas. I knew next to nothing about how the game actually worked, but that commercial still showed me all I needed in order to want it. The next reason for the lack of details has to do with Nintendo's relatively new sense of timing for announcing and talking about games. There's been a trend for them to announce a game only a few months before it's released and dump a bunch of information close to when the game is coming out. We don't really see the slow crawl that New Leaf did anymore. Instead of discussing games that are only in the early stages of development at E3, they'll release information throughout the year using directs about games that are already ready and are coming out within that calendar year. In this way, they're able to manage hype and expectations for games. This also helps to prevent what happened with City Folk, where nearly every detail of the game was known ahead of time because of how similar it was to the previous game. Many fans felt disappointed early on. After hearing this, you may still think, so it's reasonable that Nintendo wouldn't be sharing that much information in the game, but why is it a good sign? And that has to do with confidence. If the team wasn't confident in the game, I believe that they would be putting in even more of an effort to push its sales by having more ads, releasing more information before it comes out. But if they really do feel that it's a good game that fans will enjoy and spread the word about, there's no need to go overboard. The game's quality can speak for itself. If it seemed like it wasn't going to sell very well, there would probably be more effort put into trying to promote it themselves to try to prevent the game from selling poorly, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Of course, that's not to say I don't want information on the game. Originally, I was planning on not trying to look into all the details for the game before it came out, but considering how limited that is, I've been keeping track of things. So I do welcome any information that Nintendo is willing to bestow upon us. Although, not knowing how amazing the game is has made it a lot easier to wait for New Horizons. I know that recently there's been some news that has gotten some people worried, like about cloud saves, transferring the game, and in-game purchases, but I really encourage people to take a step back and wait until we have all the information before we decide how we feel. Case in point, the in-game purchases is likely to be the ability to pay for a Nintendo Online from inside the game. But even if it is DLC, we don't even know what it would entail, so I think that we should hold off judgment for now. In any case, I'm excited to pick up my Switch bundle on launch day, given that I'm able to get in a pre-order. Thank you for watching! I appreciate all the support I've been getting through your subscriptions, likes, and comments. If you want to keep up with me, feel free to follow me on my social media. Also, check the description for links to the articles I reference on Nintendo's marketing. See you next time!